So welcome everyone to the Engaging Businesses and Influencers workshop. My name is Marty Hopkins. I'm in Newark, Delaware. Why don't we go ahead and let our panel members introduce themselves. We have Mark, Randy, and Ali. Mark, you want to go first?
Yep, I'm Mark Menzer. I've been a member of CCL and Business Climate Leaders for about 2 years, and I'm retired from the energy and HVAC business.
And I'm Randy, Salim, on the West Coast, just south of San Francisco. I've been with BCL, CCL for about 5 years now, and ex-internet and media executive.
And I'm Ali Pine. I am a new intern with Business Climate Leaders this calendar year. And I am a student at Georgetown University in DC, but I'm originally from New Jersey.
Great.
Okay, thank you. One request for everyone is if you wouldn't mind renaming yourselves by putting your state in front of your name, either Delaware, Maryland, DC, or New Jersey. And that way it'll make it easier to assign people to breakout rooms here in a little bit. So if I could ask everyone to do that, I would appreciate it. And with that, Mark, you want to take it away?
Yeah, actually, Ali will.
Why don't we start with David? You want to start with David?
Well, yes, actually, that would be great. Yeah, we have David Brown, who some of you may have seen in the last session. We've asked David if he would just stay over a little bit and talk to us about, after all, we're going to be talking about how do you approach business leaders and make a convincing case for carbon fee and dividend. And as a vice president of a large utility, like David, if you could just spend a couple of minutes telling us, how would we approach you and what would be effective in getting a meeting with you?
Sure. Great. Thanks, Mark. And thanks for the opportunity to be here. Thank you all for spending part of your Saturday on this very important issue. And let me just say a little bit about CCL. You all are doing outstanding work. It's really been remarkable. I've had the opportunity not only to be a part of some of the conferences and some of the BCL conferences as well, but I've had an opportunity to sit in on some of the calls with leaders on Capitol Hill with you all as well. And so I can attest firsthand to your all's effectiveness. Policymakers hear from folks like me and special interests all the time, but you all really represent real constituents with real issues who can bring the issue alive for these folks. So your engagement is incredibly important, not only with the policymakers, but with your colleagues in the community and with the businesses in your community as well, whether as a patron or a customer or investor or other stakeholders. So, in terms of reaching out to me, look, the easiest way to do it is email or LinkedIn, and just shooting somebody like me a quick note that talks about who you are, why you want to catch up, and making a request for a few minutes of my time. As long as I'm not completely overwhelmed, I'm going to be responsive. And it might not be tomorrow, but I think that most folks like me are used to engaging with folks, listening to people, and always willing to find some time to engage. So don't be shy, don't hesitate, and don't give up. I mean, sometimes if I see a LinkedIn prompt and I check it real quickly, the prompt goes away, so I might not get right back to it. And so give it a few days and try again, but don't be shy.
That's great, David. It's nice to hear from an executive that it's okay to be persistent, and that's great. But I also want to call out David not only for his support of our work, but of kind of the great work he's done over the years involved with Climate Leadership Council, and we know, and many of us have seen the chambers kind of changing. The Chamber of Commerce is changing policy. And David has been one of those, I think, angels behind the scene flapping his wings and trying to get the chamber to wake up to the need for action on climate, and first and foremost, and then carbon pricing as well. So thank you for that work, David.
Absolutely.
Great. With that, Allie.
Yes, hello. So I'm Allie, still Allie. So please bear with me as I'm going through this presentation. As I said, I'm a new intern, and hopefully Randy and Mark can step in if I'm missing anything so you all can get the whole picture. So to start with today's presentation, there are a few key takeaways. The first thing to learn is how BCL can support you. Secondly, understanding the effective process of engaging executives and influencers. And thirdly, action plans and places for you to engage that are specific to your industry of interest. Okay, so for the meeting agenda today, we're first going to talk about who is BCL. Secondly, we're going to go through engaging with trusted messengers. We're going to also talk about making first contact with businesses and how to run an effective meeting. We're then going to go through how to follow up after that meeting, what it looks like to develop your team. And finally, we're going to go into state-specific breakout rooms and discuss action plans. So to start, what is Business Climate Leaders? So Business Climate Leaders is an action team within Citizens Climate Lobby. It's part of CCL's grasstops outreach lever. And that means we support CCL volunteers to engage with businesses of all sizes. And what we're really focusing on is building long-term partnerships that create a more livable world for all of us. To learn more about what BCL does and to really get a handle on the number of resources that are available to everyone, heading to bclresources.org is a really great resource. So anything you're really trying to do in terms of reaching out for a business, there are probably tons of resources and how-to guides on how to do that already on this website. So this would be a really great place to look. And okay, so why engage business leaders at all for carbon pricing? So firstly, Congress people want to hear from businesses. And additionally, in the last 6 months, we've seen a lot of movement that indicates businesses want to be involved in increased sustainability measures and also climate change advocacy. For example, the chairman of the Business Roundtable, who is also the president and CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, said, "Climate change is one of the greatest challenges facing the planet today, and we believe businesses are an essential part of the solution." Representing more than 200 CEOs from America's leading companies, the new Business Roundtable position on climate change reflects our belief that a national market-based emissions reduction policy is critical to reducing greenhouse gas emissions to levels designed to avoid the worst effects and mitigate the impacts of climate change. So that's a recent quote from September 2020 as well. So how BCL engages with businesses is something that's particularly interesting to me. To understand it, it's helpful to think of these businesses in 3 categories. So firstly, there are large companies, there are small and medium companies, and then there are also larger trade groups that encompass both large and small companies. And the way that these groups or buckets of businesses interacts with each other explains how BCL works really well. So oftentimes, as we get more support and build more relationships with small and medium companies, that can help garner support from larger companies. And once we have support of larger companies, that can help us get a foot in the door with larger trade groups that are kind of within that same industry. And then to sort of circle it back around, once we have a relationship with a trade group, that can then recruit and help us recruit small and medium companies to then get more involved that we weren't initially working with in the first place. So there are several sector teams that BCL has, and these groups include experts on their steering committees and also people who are experts of BCL in general. So there are different sector teams that are more industry specific, and then there are also groups that are within multiple industries that work within different sectors. So if you have companies in your area that sort of fit in any of these sectors, there are places and people for you to talk to for more information. And finally, as sort of an offshoot of the sector teams, we have started working on several declarations. These are sort of the sub-industry groups that I was referring to earlier. So even within the food and beverage area, there are brewers, wine industry, distilleries, and many other declarations that we're working on. I'm currently working on a declaration for the water sports industry. So that would, we're sort of liaising with the outdoor industry sector team as well. And so with that, I'll pass that over to Mark.
Very good. Thank you, Ali. So, of course, what we're trying to do here is to develop allies that can help us advocate with Congresspeople for carbon fee and dividends. So we are trying to develop in these businesses trusted messengers. And, you know, the beginning of all this is to think about your member of Congress and think who influences your member of Congress. And there's many ways of finding out. And by the way, in this presentation, these things that are underlined are links, and we'll make the slides available afterwards, and you can use those links. But for instance, donors, certainly donors are people that Congress people talk to, and this donors link will take you to a site called opensecrets.org, which is a great site. You should take a note of that for finding out who donates to various congressional people. Employers in a district, alumni that went to the same school as the member of Congress, trade organizations, they're all groups that influence your member of Congress, that your member of Congress listens to. So that's one group. The other group is people that you know, friends, family, etc. People that you feel like you can approach. And you are likely to find that there's some connections between the people you know and the people who are trusted messengers. So you really should assess who those groups are. And then you can ask your member of Congress or a member of their staff who they work with. Or even easier than that is to monitor the congressperson's website, their Twitter feed. There's a lot of information there about who they're meeting with and some ideas of who they trust. So these are all things can be done up front, need to be done up front to try to develop your strategy. And then we offer a sample target list. That link will take you to a spreadsheet that we've put together, kind of an easy way of keeping track of who in your chapter is talking to whom, who's doing what. It's a good management tool. And then before you do a meeting, a lot of research. So this is good for people maybe who like to do research, maybe people who don't want to be there necessarily at the meeting, but like to do the backroom work. A lot of information you can find out about the business that you're going to approach. What is their position on climate change? Take a look at what they've got on their websites. Do a Google search for them in climate change and see what position statements they've had. Who are the key people in the company? LinkedIn is a great tool. Hopefully you have a LinkedIn account. If not, you should get one and start making friends on LinkedIn. And take a look at who in that company is in charge of sustainability or government relations. I will tell you a quick story. We were trying here in Virginia to reach Dominion Power without success. I found the head of sustainability on LinkedIn. She was 2 degrees away from me. I found a common friend to make the introduction and was able to contact her that way. So LinkedIn is a great tool. You also want to look at what organizations the company belongs to that might be influential, what their competitors are doing. You may want to know that as you go in to visit with them. And particularly look at these climate associations, these climate groups. Some of them listed here. We're still in RE 100, et cetera, because lot of companies have signed up and taken a position with them. And if they're part of those groups, you can bet that they are quite progressive on sustainability. Okay, and now how do you make that contact? So there's a few things here. I talked about LinkedIn already, but rocketreach.com, Viola and Orbit are two sites that help you find emails, because it's not always easy to find the email for the people, executives in a company. And these sites will let you use it for a limited time for free, and then you can get a subscription if you're going to be using it extensively. Put together a notable email, something that'll get through the static. And we have some examples on our website of emails that have worked for us in various industries. Of course, then ask for a meeting, explain who you are, what you want to talk about. And if it doesn't work the first time, just keep the emails coming, keep sending them things. If you subscribe to BCL's Twitter feed or any of our social media, we'll talk about that in a moment. We're constantly sending out information on new articles that talk about climate pricing, carbon pricing, and just keep sending that along, sending information to those contacts. And of course, remember the 3 Ps. We talk about that in CCL all the time: be patient, be polite, and be persistent. Randy?
Thanks, Mark. So you've figured out who you want to talk to, and you've done some research, and you've sent them an email, and all of a sudden, or LinkedIn, like David said, and all of a sudden they say, oh, yeah, we're open to meet. So now what do you do? So now we kind of talk about how we engage and strategize. So first, of course, as with meeting, a very similar process to meeting with a member of Congress, kind of creating your strategy, trying to figure out, what are the inroads, what within the work that we're doing and within carbon pricing and the EICDA would be of most interest to them, trying to figure out what questions, how to get them engaged, how to get the information that's helpful to us so that we can help educate and help move them along. And of course, we want to figure out what we can do to appreciate them, because there's always something that we can appreciate, and we want to appreciate the work that they are doing, and then ask them to get engaged with the work that we are. So as with meeting with the member of Congress, we kind of look at it that there's different roles that you have. Ideally, you're going in with a team. It's a couple people or even more sometimes now that we're doing virtual meetings all the time. And we're here to be your partner in that. So you don't need to be an expert on all these industries from nuclear to sodas, soft drinks. But there are people within CCL, within BCL that have some expertise in these different areas. And even if not, we're the experts on CCL and BCL and carbon pricing and the EICDA. So with a little bit of research, a little bit of support, we can go in there together. So you don't need to go in on your own. So, but even if it is just you, that these are the different roles that you want to make sure that you're covering. Somebody's leading it, that you're appreciating, that you're kind of checking on time and being respectful of that person's time, what we want to ask for, and kind of taking notes so that we can keep tabs kind of over time as to what the engagement has been. And what is it that is of interest to companies? Why do executives want to support this work? Of course, executives are people too, as our members of Congress. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves, and they have the moral desire, we all do, of making the world a better place and caring for this incredible creation, caring for the beauty that we're able to enjoy, and also concern about for our kids and grandkids or great grandkids, whatever that case may be. And of course, there's a business case to be made. For David on the nuclear power side, part of the reason that they're so supportive of carbon pricing is it would be good good for their business. Not only do they think it's the right thing to do, but it makes dollars and cents. It makes only for companies, the business cases that there's opportunities that it will create, opportunities for new business streams to take advantage of a cleaner, more renewable economy, and also savings that can be made in terms of their business. And they want to have a seat at the table. From our belief and what we see happening in the administration now is there is going to be regulation. There is going to be movement on climate. So do you want to be just at the effect of that, or do you want to be engaged and at the table and lobbying and engaged in what you feel is the best policy for yourselves, for the world, and for your company? So some examples of that would be of how we look at that. If you're a health organization, Sutter Health is a big health provider out here on the West Coast. Obviously, decreasing fossil fuel usage is less air pollution and thus less deaths, good for our overall health. Lower greenhouse gases, less warming, and also less health issues. So good. Although you could say it's not good for their business, that there's less sick people, it's overall good for their mandate of what they're trying to do in terms of making us all healthier and live more productive, longer lives. In terms of a brewer, for instance, and anybody that's reliant on agricultural inputs, just having more predictability at a lower cost of those inputs, that climate change from storms to heat and wildfires, as we've seen here in California and on the West Coast, can impact all those suppliers and supply chains. Also, the proposal that what we're promoting is actually, in most cases, very, very little cost with a huge impact. 40% decrease in emissions over 10 years with, in the case of a brewer or a winery, only an increase of a couple cents per bottle over the course of that time. So big value for the impact. David in the last session was talking about, I think he was talking about the sulfur dioxide and acid rain, and that putting that market-based solution ended up being cheaper, a lot cheaper than people thought it would be on industry, and it actually dealt with it a lot quicker than was imagined. Okay, and then of course we have to remember the dividend in giving the revenue back. There is that impulse, and we have information backing that up, that a lot of people would likely spend it on healthcare and things like beer and consumables. So there's a benefit to business from that side. From the solar side, I think pretty logical. A higher price of fossil fuels is going to drive down and encourage people to seek alternatives and drive down the return on investment, or actually make it a faster return on investment for customers investing in those renewables. For a ski area, I think this goes also for farmers in your area. They're already seeing the impact of climate change. It's already hurting their crops. They're already seeing increases in insurance. They're already having to make snow and other things take on other costs because of that. So why not support a policy that's going to spread those costs across the entire economy? And bipartisan. People are concerned, want a business and others who want to make sure that ideally that it's lasting. Businesses want consistency. They don't want to have new policies happen all the time. So they want consistency. So ideally that's from a bipartisan place, and it's something that is good for their business as well as the economy and the environment. So what are we asking of people when we meet with them? It's great for somebody to sign an endorsement, to sign the brewer's endorsement, or to sign off on one of our declarations. It's great to sign off on the EICDA, but what we'd really like is them to be engaged and work with us, to be in meetings with legislators with us, or go in and talk to their legislators, which are, if it's a big company, they're doing it already, to talk about taxation or immigration issues. We'll also make climate a policy, make climate a priority in terms of you're talking with. And we can help you do that. We can help you engage with us. To educate your employees, their employees, to talk to people that they know in their industry, as whether other executives that they may know, and engage with their trade organizations, as I mentioned David has done with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think with the other trade organizations that he has belonged to engage, start engaging, to introduce us, to help us start working with broader coalitions of businesses. So with that, I will take a break, a breather from us talking, and open it up for some questions from you all in terms of the information that we presented before we kind of dive into more detail. Ali, any questions in chat? And encourage everybody, if you have a question, you can put it in chat or unmute yourself and ask away.
And Randy, while we're waiting, I'll just, for anybody who was late, I'll just remind you, we've asked, because we're going to have some breakout sessions later for strategizing, please put by your name the state or DC, if that's where you are, by your name, so we know which breakout group to put you in. And if you don't know how to do that, just go down to participants, find your name in the list of participants, scroll over, put your cursor over, scroll over to more, and there's an option to rename. You can put DC or Delaware or Maryland, whatever, in front of your name.
In the chat, I did get a question about the availability of slides after. So maybe we could send that out to everybody who was here, if that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I will just echo what David said in chat. I'm just going to read David's chat, which I think is very good. In terms of checklists, in terms of doing research on companies, he also mentioned, look at their investor relations presentations that they have, that they give to, quarterly to their investors, and look in terms of whether they have a corporate social responsibility or ESG report. Most big companies do these days, usually on their website, and you can look up and it gives kind of a breakdown of what things like their carbon footprint is, and what things that they're doing towards moving toward that end, and what they're doing just to be good citizens. And he also notes whether they're asking them or looking to see whether the companies have provided any testimony before their regulatory commissions or federal or state legislatures. That's public knowledge.
Also in the chat, there was a request to tell a success story of BCL's process.
Sure. Mark, do you have something that jumps to mind, or I will?
Why don't you go ahead, Randy?
Yeah, a couple of things I'll throw out there. On the big company side, we've had meetings with Unilever, for instance, that you may know, big Dutch, I guess Anglo-Dutch, UK consumer products company. They happen to have the world's largest ice cream manufacturing plant in Tennessee, of course. That makes perfect sense. And we had them involved, and were able to get them to meeting with face-to-face meeting with the two senators in Tennessee. And even in the case, they weren't and haven't come out in support specifically of EICDA, but they're supportive of anything that greens the grid and anything that is putting a price on climate and carbon. So they were able to kind of express that. So big company doing that. On the smaller company side, we've had great luck I'll talk specifically right now about the wineries that I've been involved with. We now have close to 120 wineries. Just started with small wineries. I thought when we started the initiative that we were going to get, it was going to be California wineries and probably up the West Coast. And much to my great surprise and joy, it was North Carolina, it was New York, Michigan, conservative districts in those areas that happen to have a vibrant wine industry, and that those wineries are affected by climate and concern and supporting the work that we're doing. And from that base of these smaller family wineries, we've now just gotten Fetzer, pretty big name, and we just got Jackson family, which is one of the maybe top 5, at least top 10 wineries in the world supporting us. And we just had a really good meeting with Wine America, which is the wine trade group based in DC. And basically the quote that their VP of Public Policy said to us was, I think we should be able to support this. I don't see a problem. We want to figure out if there's, make sure we answer all the questions for pushback, but I think this is something we're ready to do. So kind of building up that, as Ali kind of talked about, small to large to trade groups and that whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I'll add one very small business person, my dentist. I just got him to sign the health declaration. And if you think it's easy to ask your dentist to do that, well, he's got his hands in your mouth. It's not.
Ali?
So there's another question asking, other than what businesses influence our members of Congress, are there industries CCL wants to target?
Yes. The answer is yes. I guess I don't know. There have been in the past, it's been healthcare has come up. I know Danny's talked about healthcare. Obviously, biggest employer, one of the biggest employers in the country, and it's everywhere. So there are industries like that that are particularly attractive to CCL as an organization. Ali kind of went through those kind of 12, 14 different sectors that we work in. So those are kind of the ones from agriculture to energy that we've focused on. There isn't a specific mandate. The reason I kind of hesitated, there isn't like a specific mandate from CCL headquarters in terms of, you guys, these would be great industries. We really want to get these industries involved. It has been more, let's look at, what is going to really move your specific legislators, and that, in essence, is what's most important in terms of moving this forward.
Yeah, I would add to that, Randy, manufacturing industry. Now that's quite diverse, but there's a lot of manufacturers of high efficiency equipment or equipment that really will benefit from carbon fee and dividend. And we're trying to work with them. The question was, what are our successes? But to be honest, some of these successes take a long time, and some of these are still potential successes. So we've been working with a lot of industries, a lot of trade associations, and it's a process. But I think we are making some progress with them.
And maybe one more question if there is one. Otherwise, we'll forge on.
So it looks like Nadine may have had her hand raised, so maybe she could ask her question.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I have two questions, actually. And one is with respect to making sure that people aren't duplicating efforts. Some of these companies are really big, making sure that, that multiple people aren't working on the same targets. I know that there's a grasstops engagement tracker, and I was wondering if you could speak to how that works and how people can access it if they're volunteers in CCL. And then my second question was, what options are there other than going to the Energy Innovation Act page and hitting the endorse button if a company isn't ready to endorse the Energy Innovation Act, but they might be more supportive of, being out about, vocal about carbon pricing or carbon fee and dividend? Thank you.
Great question. So the grasstops engagement tracker is CCL's vehicle for kind of keeping track of all the organizations, not only businesses, but it could be faith or municipalities that we're connecting with. So you can look up grasstops engagement tracker. I don't know if anybody, Nadine or anybody else, could just pop it in chat, the link to that. But definitely want to look at that if you're looking at whatever, Weyerhaeuser or Dominion Energy. Want to just check to see who is engaging with that company. It doesn't mean that you can't. It just means to check to see. And then if you see somebody is, you can send them an email to get an update on what's going on and if you can get involved. So that's one avenue. The other is if it is a big company, it's a Fortune 500 company, then it is worthwhile just sending an email to info@businessclimateleaders.org and just checking with us and seeing if we've or know of anybody that's engaged with that company, but also we can support you with resources and presentations and emails and the like and help you strategize and even join your meetings if you'd like that support. So those are the tools and availability things available to you. And the other question was part of it, Mark?
Engagement tracker.
Nadine, help me here. Sorry.
What folks can do, what a business can do
Oh.
if they're not ready to sign on for the EICDA, but they might want to support carbon fee and dividenders, carbon pricing.
Yeah. I'm going to go back here quick. There's a great report that we did along with ASBC, the American Sustainability Business Council. I'll pop this into chat. Whoops, where did it go? I lost it here, sharing it, but I'll get it. Which is a list of all the different asks, all the different things that companies can do. So you can ask of them to do those different things if they're not ready to endorse. They can privately meet with members of Congress to talking to their employees or having us talk to their employees or things like that. So there's a whole list of opportunities to get them involved. And some people, a lot of companies will say, great, I love what you're doing. We're not ready to support any specific bill, but maybe we're willing to support action on climate, or we would issue a statement like that, or we'd be willing to talk to the trade group about, moving forward. We would like our trade group to take the lead. We're willing to talk to them about perhaps taking the lead on that. Could be something like that.
We do have a few more questions, but do we need to move on for time?
Yeah, I think we'll move on, if I may, and we'll hold those questions for later.
Okay.
I'm going to move this slide forward. I think it's Mark here, and I'll pop that link into chat.
Okay, very good. So we're getting ready now to think about the meeting, and this is a typical agenda. If you have done a congressional visit with CCL, this might look familiar because a visit to influence a company is very analogous to trying to influence an elected official. So our typical agenda, we introduce ourselves, make sure we know how much time we've got for the meeting. If there's something nice to say to the company about what we know about them and what they've done, is certainly a good way to start off the meeting. Then we talk about CCL, who we are, BCL, and then roll into open discussion, learn more about what the company has done and is planning to do in sustainability. After all, if they've accepted this visit, they know this is what you want to talk about. I'm sure they're very proud to talk about what they have been doing. Gives you an opportunity to segue into explaining the Energy Innovation Act and what we're doing, and why we think that the Energy Innovation Act is a superior way of putting a policy together. And then we move down to the ask. And as Randy has already said, the ask could be full endorsement, but you have to play it by ear depending on what you're hearing and how the meeting is going to know just what your ask should be. It could be a variety of the things that we've already talked about. And then at the end, agree on what the future items are going to be, what we promise to do, what you promise to do, and follow it up, with a thank you. So it's pretty intuitive, and it is very much like meeting a member of Congress.
And the other thing I want to throw in there into Nadine's question as well, sometimes the ask is just, hey, will you look at this material or look at the bill, or, can we check in with you in a month or two? It may even be as simple as that, because again, it's about developing a long-term relationship, and depending on where they're at, that may be the most reasonable ask.
Very good. So yeah, so, and before you do the visit, I mean, it's a good idea, of course, to go through, do some role playing amongst your team, kind of think about what the visit would be like, who's going to take various roles, what kind of pushback you might get, and what your answers might be. So we've actually done that, some of us on Business Climate Leaders, and here's an example of a role-playing exercise that we did amongst ourselves. There we go.
Hey, good morning, Bruce.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing good, as best you can
Great.
these days.
Oh, a lot of stuff going on. Randy and I are just delighted that you have time to meet with us today, so thank you. In fact, just to make sure, what's your time frame like?
I got about a half an hour.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Well, I gotta say straight off, I'm one happy customer. Thank you for the solar panels. Your crew did an excellent job, and we're loving them. So thank you.
Great. I'll let them know.
Please do. Okay, so as you know, we're here to talk to you about Citizens Climate Lobby and the work that we do, the bipartisan work that we do. And we're, again, just really glad for your time today.
Sure.
Did you get a chance to look at the information we sent along, Bruce?
I did. I just skimmed over it though. I'd like
Okay.
a recap if you could.
Oh yeah, happy to. So as Sarah said, we're part of Citizens Climate Lobby. We're volunteers, and there's over 200,000 of us in the US. And we have local chapters in every congressional district. And as Sarah mentioned, we are working on bipartisan to raise bipartisan support for climate action. So we're meeting with every member of Congress 3 to 4 times a year. And we have been instrumental and are engaged in getting federal carbon pricing passed, specifically a bill that's now introduced in the House called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And the 3 tenets of that are putting a steadily rising price on fossil fuels at the source, taking all that money and giving it back equally to every US citizen on a monthly basis, and having a border carbon adjustment to make sure that US businesses are competitive. And also, I think even more importantly, or equally importantly, is to encourage other countries to enact similar policies.
Yeah.
So we believe this overall framework is both, it will be good for your business and good for the economy as a whole. It's will grow jobs, it will lower pollution, which is great for our health, and it's great for the environment in that it will help get us on track to meet what scientists are telling us is essential in terms of lowering greenhouse gas emissions.
As a business person, as a business person, Bruce, and the industry that you're in, the carbon-free industry, it's really important to understand that this is a market-based solution. Randy and I both know that you worked on some cap and trade policy, and so wondering if you have
Yeah, it's just in a nutshell, why do you like carbon fee and dividend better than cap and trade?
Well, most importantly, it's equitable and it's transparent. It's a simple solution. It's a market-based solution, and it works across the board.
Yeah, gasoline as well as power plants, I understand.
Exactly.
All right, that sounds good. So I'm interested in my partner. I will talk to my partner about this, and if she goes along with it, then we'd like to be able to help you. What would that look like?
Well, you have a lot of options. You can talk to your employees. You can talk to your colleagues, especially since you're in the carbon-free industry. They're a significant voice as well. And you can meet with us, with your members of Congress to support this bill. And what would be really great is if you went ahead and considered signing an endorsement for the act. I believe we sent over a link to the carbon-free declaration. You should find it there somewhere.
Yeah.
To you again if you can't find it. But having your support and others in your industry put your signature on to this declaration would be really important.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, do I get a commission on any referrals?
Absolutely, of course.
That's the way it works. Well, boy, I really appreciate the time you're spending on this. I've really got to go now. if I have any more questions, should I get in touch with you or?
Please do, and we'll make sure to follow up with you as well.
Okay,
Yeah, and
We're
happy
really
to
grateful.
happy to meet again. Happy to meet with you and your with your partners or employees or however we can, whatever we can do to support. We're here.
yeah. Well, considering the dark skies that we've got out there, I really appreciate all the work that you folks have put into this over the years, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and we're looking forward to working with you too.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Very good. Thank you. So those were real people, not actors. But yeah, it's an important step to go through and kind of think about what the meeting is going to be like. The dynamics of a Zoom meeting are very different than an in-person meeting. But yeah, it's important to kind of think about how you're going to do it. Randy, if we can go back to the slides. Good. And then again, following up, it's also intuitive. Of course, you want to follow up with a note of thanks and send everything that you promised and do everything that you promised to do at the meeting. And you know, the important thing is also put it on your calendar and make sure you stay in touch. Send information, updates, etc. And as I said before, a lot of information that we send out from business climate leaders that you could repackage and send to your contacts there. And this additional resource links takes you to our website that has information to educate business executives. And again, I really suggest you spend a lot of time looking at our site because there's a ton of information there. With that, I think we're going to get ready to do breakouts next. Is that right, Randy? Is that our next slide?
Yeah, just to see if there's any other questions, we can dive into those couple questions Ali had earlier, and then we will go into I think it's just sharing resources we have and then talking about our state breakouts. We can do that and maybe take 5 minutes of questions, and then we'll jump into our breakouts and for 20 minutes or so, and then have some time afterwards to get back together. Does that sound good?
So one of the questions is, would business action on climate be facilitated if businesses employed trained climate risk and opportunity officers?
Climate risk and opportunity officers?
Yes, it seems
Yeah.
like that would include someone who has Masters of Science level in risk, climate, and related issues.
Yeah. So, I mean, companies, especially large companies, have risk managers. And I think climate change has certainly become one of the things that they look at because it impacts so many parts of a business, from their supply lines to their customers to their, actual their plants. Could be flooded or other natural disasters. So I think that risk managers are looking more and more at climate change. In fact, you may know that the trying to think of the group that looks at that, the Commodity Trading Association recently came out with a report on how vulnerable American industry is to climate change. So I think for large businesses, that's a big part of their risk management right now.
David, I wonder, do you have any comment on that, or?
Yeah, I was just going to echo Mark on that side with CFTC, and the SEC is also looking at some required disclosures. So I would not be shocked at all if the Biden administration, as part of a kind of whole of government response to climate, starts to make anybody who's got to file with the SEC file carbon and climate disclosures. So I think that'd be a welcome step.
There's another question asking if there are particular types or sizes of companies that make the most sense to target.
I'll kind of jump in there, and Mark can add his thoughts. It's always a whatever, half dozen to one, and whatever that cliche is. But obviously, big companies have bigger influence, but they're also harder to move. They're harder to get engaged. They're harder to, they're less risk averse. They're trying to, they're concerned in terms of, whether they support a bill or not. It takes a lot of consideration. But if you get them, that, they have a lot of sway. They're probably already have active government relations. They're already lobbying. They're big donors to political campaigns, et cetera. On the other side, the smaller organizations, you can typically get into it. You can talk to the owner. If it's something of interest to them, it affects their business or personal, then they're willing to sign, and support right away. And if you get enough of those small people, they kind of match up. So they're both important, I would say. And really it's a matter, going back to that, what's going to impact your member of Congress, and also who do you know? It's always best to kind of start with the people you know, and that build that track record, start getting those endorsements and those individuals and companies in your community. And that helps you one way or the other. One helps the other.
Yeah, and I would add to that we've, besides businesses, there's business groups, business associations. We've already mentioned trade associations, which are important, although they tend to be a little slow in reacting. They wait for their members often to take a lead on this. But chambers of commerce, every town has them. They are generally small and medium business owners, especially since the U.S. Chamber has recently come out with a statement talking about market mechanisms for climate change. I think that's a good entree to chambers of commerce. So that's another group that you would look at, and that does represent mostly the smaller and medium-sized companies.
Mm-hmm.
There is another question about volunteers. And this person is asking, how can we encourage volunteers in their interest without scaring them away with the commitment needed to follow up and understand that it's more than usually just one meeting to get an endorsement or to accomplish what we're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, that is the crux, right, of the work that we do within CCL. It's if I guess the saying is always, if we had more people doing this, the things we could do. So we obviously have an incredible number, including all of you, that dedicate a lot of time to this work. And so I always approach it like, I'm happy if you can make it, if from the very little, which is if you know somebody and can introduce me to them, I'm happy to take it on. But ideally, maybe that person would be willing to take on that one company or two companies or three companies. And then there are people willing to jump in and take on more. So it's as you kind of point out, trying to find that sweet spot of how much are they willing to take on without turning them away or them getting discouraged. So we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, and I would also remind you, we're always trying to do this as a team, not as individuals. And in these days, particularly when we have a lack of social interaction, it's kind of nice to be able to accomplish things through teamwork. And so I would suggest that you try to appeal to their sense of teamwork in getting things done. Not too much work for anybody, and everybody gets that sense of satisfaction when you make a win.
Yeah, and then there's people like Mark that, if you just keep asking things of him, he keeps doing them and keeps doing more. So one more question and then we'll kind of move on.
Yes, so there is a question about what are some resources that can be used to research information and data that would be relevant to the businesses that we're meeting with.
Yeah, Mark, do you want to?
Well, there's, where do you start? I mean, you Google the company, Google the industry, learn everything you can about it. And then once again, I would suggest you go to, BCL has two major websites. There is our external website, which is businessclimateleaders.org. But the website that I'm going to talk to you about here is bclresources.org. BCL resource, there we go. And if under industry resources, the third item there, we have information for every one of the target industries that we are going that we have targeted, and there's a ton. I mean, for wineries, for instance, we've done a calculation based on their energy price of how much the carbon fee would cost them per bottle of wine, and it's quite low, by the way. And likewise for other industries, a lot of information there. But yeah, I think the question is, when do you have enough information? Because you can just get lost trying to find all the things that are online for that company and for that industry.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and it's good to research, and at the same time, you don't need to be an expert kind of going in. As I say, there's people within BCL, CCL, as well as, David. He doesn't, if you go to meet with David, he doesn't expect you to be an expert on the nuclear industry. It's more, finding some common ground of which to talk about. In this case, carbon pricing, the climate, and how we move forward. So, Mark, a few last slides, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah. Okay. So if you would like to be on our mailing list, get involved, we suggest you join BCL. It's very easy to do. And if you do so, you will get our newsletters and our emails. So you'll kind of have the latest information. Go to CCL community site and then click on Action Teams, and Business Climate Leaders is one of the groups under Action Teams. Hit the join button there and we'll get you on the list. No obligation, no membership fees, but a lot of information coming your way. Okay, this is still me. So yeah, so as I said, doing this as a team makes it a lot of fun. And the kind of roles that you would have on the team is somebody who's going to lead the team, chairman of the team, you might say, keeps things going. Somebody who is the outside person who is trying to reach out to the company, attending the meeting, working with the company. The background people, the researcher comes up with all the information on that business. And then your connector who can make the introduction. So maybe somebody who knows somebody that can get that foot in the door. And then regular meetings, both of your team, and then of course, regular meetings with the business to keep that relationship going. And I'm on a few teams here in Virginia where we're just trying to target certain companies, reach out and do just that. That's how we organize ourselves.
Thanks, Mark. And a team, of course, can be two people. So, and if you're one person and you team with BCL, that gives you two or more. So, doesn't have to be a big entity to get us going. So, but with that, we're going to move into our state teams, kind of state organizations, and get a chance to talk to each other. All right, welcome back, everybody. At least while we're waiting for everybody, I'm just going to show you. There was a question about joining Business Climate Leaders. So if you go to community and then you look on Connect up here and Action Teams, you'll see here on the left, Business Climate Leaders.
Okay.
And then right on the top here where it says remove bookmark, if you haven't joined, there'll be a button that says join. So just join us there.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't have my email on here, but you can also go to these resource sites and you'll get information to connect with us. So, all right. Is everybody back now? Mark, do you want to start us out with some ideas that came out of your group?
Yes, sure. Yeah, we had so we were Maryland, Delaware, DC. We had some good discussions. They started wide ranging, and then David Brown pointed out that if we really want to target it, the only elected congressional official that we don't have in those states is it Andy Harris in Eastern Maryland on the Eastern Shore, and we really should target him, which was obvious, quite right. And so, talking about his district, which is very rural, it's agriculture, but particularly poultry industry. as well as seafood. And poultry industry on the Eastern Shore mostly means Purdue. So we got targeted down very quickly. And so we've got 2 volunteers to do a little research on that. I got cut off in mid-sentence to you, Carol. You asked how much time you have to do the research. Hopefully, next 3 or 4 weeks, and then come back and we can try to put together a team in your area to follow up on this. But it was a very good discussion. As I said, it got targeted very quickly, and we're made some plans at least to start looking into Purdue in particular and the seafood industry on the Eastern Shore in general, and see what else has been done there already by CCL.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm the outsider here, but I'll just throw out my observations quickly and then let the Jersey folks chime in. But fisheries definitely came up as one interesting area, particularly for I guess a couple of Republican districts along the coast, as well as state senators. So that's an area and one of smaller entities to make a focus. The others were big focus, a lot of big pharma in Jersey, big healthcare systems as well, big utility. So those were kind of the other kind of areas of interest. So with that, I'll open it up to anybody else who wants to share their thoughts and observations. Okay, as we're doing that, I just have up here on the screen just some of the resources. Again, bclresources.org, the internal site, and then businessclimateleaders.org, the external one. Join us on community, and MARC here has, MARC works, spends a lot of time getting our social media efforts up, but I would love for you to connect with us on social media. So I would, if somebody has a question or comment, and then I just want to leave some time as well for David to give us some parting thoughts. So any comments in terms of the state planning groups or other thoughts or questions? David,
just a question of how we are going to come back together, I guess. This is a special session. Will this be sort of coordinated through BCL?
Happy to get involved, but we'll send it. Typically what we've done is it goes off to the state coordinators, and we offer our help as well to get involved. But for instance, if Tim, you had interest in the fishery side, I'm happy to be involved and work with you in developing the team and program. And it sounds like there's some interest down in Maryland as well. So we can do it that way, as well as you guys can decide to get back together yourselves to take on some of these initiatives. Sounds like Richard is a pretty good point person for a number of this. Richard Larson. David, if I may, since I really appreciate you being here and spending the time and sharing your thoughts. So if you have any other final thoughts and marching orders for us, we'd love it.
Boy, thanks again for the opportunity to be here with you today. The work that you all are doing is really invaluable, and I can't emphasize that enough. And for you to spend the day on a precious weekend is a great commitment and a testament to your commitment here on this really important issue. I do think that given the Democratic majorities in the Congress right now and a very, very motivated president, that the opportunity's never been as good as it is today to succeed on the legislative front, but you really need your full-scale engagement here, and you're making a difference. So thank you. And as I said, happy to be a resource going forward. If you all have any questions, you can always find me on LinkedIn.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for your attention and participation. We hope you found this to be a useful use of your time, and you got something out of this, and you'll be thinking some more about the businesses in your areas that you can be talking to.